Welcome to one of the first sessions after the opening keynote. We'd like to thank Mr. Eli Shia for sharing his expertise with us today as he talks about what it takes to successfully take your lending business online. In this session, Eli will show you why your website is a huge asset for your business and why you probably don't need or want a mobile app, ways to leverage email to automate communication with customers, and why you can't ignore SEO in 2021, why you should consider buying leads, but only if you set it up correctly. Eli, I'll pass it to you. I can't wait for your session.
All right, guys, welcome to TCLS 2021 and hosted by your favorite people at Infinity, of course. Today, we're going to be talking about bringing your lending business online and ways to improve your presence online, because a lot of you with web might have found out that just having it is not really enough. So we'll be talking about a few to kind of elevate your business, ways to kind of improve the way you do business. So before we hop into it, a little about me. My name is Eli. I'm a client onboarding specialist with Infinity. What does that mean? That basically means all of our new clients sign on with us, basically go through all their training and setup with me. I'm basically the project manager on the Infinity side that helps you translate over everything from your previous business to our new system. So that basically means that I have exposure to a lot of different business models. I've set up businesses all over the country and even some businesses internationally. So just having that kind of exposure to hopefully give you some insight on a few things that we've seen that are very effective in elevating your presence. So because of our different format this year, we asked that actually, if you have any questions, just write them down, email them over to me, just because we actually don't have any Q&A sessions with our virtual format. So just jot anything down and just feel free to send me an email if you have any follow-up. So today we're going to be talking about 4 subjects. And the first chapter is going to go over why online and the advantages of going online if you haven't already. And if you already have, what are some ways to kind of improve that presence? The second is going to be mobility, and we'll talk about that once we get into it. I don't want to spoil that. And the third subject is going to be email. And the very last subject, and the most effective, arguably, is going to go over SEO and lead generation. Why online? If you already have a website, maybe this is a stupid question. But if you're kind of on the fence, thinking about, why can't I have a website? I don't know where to start. Maybe this is where we can kind of push you in the right direction to take that next big leap. So why online? Whenever someone asks us that, we kind of respond with, well, first off, your goal is to make money, right? Because having an online is going to maximize your potential. That's just fact. And it's not easy. There's obviously a lot of steps to it. But taking a look at it, this is actually a snip or a slide that we cut from our website catalog. Having a very effective website really changes the outlook of your customers when they visit your site to look for how your product works or to essentially just find out if your product is suitable for their situation. Advantages of a website. The first thing is a website is a 24/7 employee. You consider the fact that maybe you don't know where to start. That's kind of where every new hire starts in your company as well. You kind of have to train them up, get them used to the situation, and with repetition and proper guidance, hopefully you have someone that's able to perform their required actions. And a website is no different. You're going to have to invest time into implementing a website, and you're going to have to just get on the board somewhere. But once you do, once you're able to improve that start, that foundation, you're going to have an employee that's not only cheaper than all of your existing employees, because once you're done with it, it's really just the annual cost for domain and hosting. And aside from that, maybe a little bit of maintenance. But for the most part, this is going to be your cheapest employee that's working 24/7, 365 days out of the year, given that you're doing proper maintenance with no outages, of course. So a website is a huge advantage in that regard. Just having your information always available and making it so that customers can always find you. It also legitimizes your business. We kind of talk about how You want customers to be able to find information. The first thing we do nowadays is we go online and we look for reviews. We look for a website that kind of eases our worries about doing business with a certain individual that we might not know too much about. So having a website to educate your customers and kind of provide that guiding presence and, this is what to expect if you were to do business with us is extremely powerful. Automation. So we kind of talk about the 24/7 employee. A well set up website can basically eliminate a lot of the actions that your CSR has to deal with. Depending on what your goals are, depending on what businesses you do or what partners you actually utilize for things like underwriting, you can actually eliminate a lot of human actions and automate your entire process. Of course, the obvious one, it also expands your reach. If you're a local business, maybe instead of just being confined to a small town, you have your whole state. Maybe instead of the whole state, it's the entire country or international. Of course, there's going to be regulations that you're going to have to deal with, but having an online presence undeniably expands your reach. And lastly, all of these things combined is just going to provide an overall superior customer experience. We all feel much more at ease. We're all at peace of mind when we check out online and our vendor basically tells us everything we're going to expect from the emails, from the invoices and receipts. So just having that system to kind of ease that tension is going to provide a superior customer experience. So another thing to keep in mind, when it comes to your website, of course, we kind of talked about how just having a website is not enough. You want to actually make sure that it looks good, just because looks actually really does matter for websites. The reason for this is we kind of talked about how customers will just kind of Google you, look you up online if they don't know about you. And your website, most of the time, is going to be your customer's first impression of your business. So how many times have you gone to a website and maybe decided, I don't really like the way this looks. I'm going to go to a different vendor. We've all done that before. So it's really important to make sure that your website is set up professionally and clean so that it provides confidence and provides a really good first impression. Another factor to consider is customer experience. We've talked about a lot of basic functions, like we need a website to make sure that customers can get information. We need a website so that customers can apply at any time of the day, even when we're after hours. Another item to consider is, how is our customer feeling when going through all of this? Is it a good experience? Is it very easy to navigate? Is it really difficult to navigate? An example of this is, how many people have been frustrated trying to extract your bank statement from your online bank account? That's pretty much everybody. Everyone has had some kind of trouble extracting some kind of document from their financial institution. And the reason for this is because the customer experience for most of these configurations are quite frankly terrible. You log in, there's a million buttons, you don't know where to go for the statement, and maybe you open it in the app. There's also those situations where you open it in the app and they need you to open it on a browser or a computer. It's just a terrible experience. So we've all gone through that before. So are we creating that situation for our customers? Because if they're going through a gauntlet in their application, in their verification, maybe it's frustrating them to the point where they're not even completing the application. Maybe they're trying to look for information and it's so jumbled and not very clearly defined. So they're confused and maybe they don't even proceed or attempt the application. So customer experience is a factor that really should be really heavily monitored. And if done correctly, it can really increase your hit rate and the overall performance of your website. So obviously things that lead to a bad customer experience, is your website easy to read and navigate? Very simple, but very hard to execute, just because a lot of times we get lost on websites. We've all done it. I don't know where to check out. I don't know where the shopping cart is. Every website we've visited, we're criticizing it in our mind because we're thinking, I don't know how to do what I'm trying to accomplish. So are we creating the same situation? Are your customers informed? Do they know what to expect? When they apply, are you telling them, hey, this email is going to direct you on what to do next for your instant bank verification, if that's needed, whatever the case. Making sure they're informed on every step of the way is really important just because people want to know, what's next? Now what? And is your application process as efficient as possible? Of course, there's things like regulation where you need to make sure you collect certain pieces. There's also things like protecting your business, making sure that we have enough information to make an educated decision on approving this customer. But at the same time, there's always something to improve in the application, whether it's removing something from the initial application and adding it in during a later stage for verification, just to make it so that it's broken up more, or maybe adding some kind of digital buffer to essentially make it easier without dealing with paper documents. Whatever it may be, there's always something to improve just to make the customer experience better. And also your internal customers, employees, more happy as well. So obviously things that lead to better or positive customer experiences, a simple guided process, easier said than done, just because there's a fine balance between having too much information and too little information. Essentially being overly helpful and over explaining every step of the way, just to make sure that the customer feels like you're literally holding their hand through the entire process. And lastly, taking the time to consider your customer's experience is really going to be the factor that sets you apart from your competition. A lot of people just kind of have a cookie cutter approach to it. Just get an application in there and see if we can approve them, see if they pass the test. But they don't really consider, what am I putting the customer through? Sometimes the IBV is very difficult because the IBVs don't support some of the smaller banks that some customers might use. So it's not as easy to fill out. For some customers that are technically challenged, maybe they can't use a cloud. They can't log in. They don't have an email. So really just taking your time to put yourself in the customer's shoes is really going to be effective in making sure that you have a viable customer experience for your website. So that's it for why online. And hopefully that helps you decide if you're kind of on the fence. If you already have a website, hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of a few basic ways to elevate your presence. But the next subject, it actually is in regards to mobility. And to a lot of you, this might seem like a very confusing topic, but it's actually an extremely powerful and useful subject. And it actually addresses one of our major questions that we get from a lot of clients. And a lot of clients are actually disappointed to hear our answer in this. But let me actually address everything head on. So before we hop into mobility, let me ask you, how do you spend your free time? Just kind of answer in your head, pretty general. How does everyone spend their free time? Doesn't matter how old you are. Nowadays, in 2021, there's a common denominator for everybody. And that is everyone is on their cell phones. And, now even more so than before, everyone has a smartphone. Everyone has immediate internet access. You could Google anything in 2 seconds. And, when we were kids, when teachers used to say, you're never going to have a calculator in your pocket. Well, guess what? It turns out that we have a super calculator in our pocket that can connect to the internet and do a million things that a calculator can't even consider doing or even dream of doing. So it's crazy that smartphones are even a thing, if you think about it. But it's also even crazier that the majority of people in the world, in our country, have access to it. So an interaction past, just going off this comment before smartphones, people might have small talk in the sense of, old is Barbara Streisand. Someone might chime in, say, I'm 71, and wow, I didn't know that. And who's Barbara Streisand? But nowadays, we see it every day when we go out to our restaurants, maybe not so much nowadays given current events. Of course, going out, everyone in couples are just glued to this, no matter where they are. Very different world nowadays. But it's also something that we can take advantage of. Looking at it, this is stats from 2012, so it's actually already 8 years old, but still useful information. Looking at this chart, we can see that Americans consume 60 hours of electronic media per week. Again, this is from 2012. So by 2021, especially given current events with the all digital world now, these numbers are likely higher. But even 60 hours is a huge chunk of time where if you do not have space in this realm, you're missing out on a huge market. You're missing out on a lot of opportunity for your business. And another chart, just to kind of talk about more recent numbers, these are kind of general numbers based on approximate sales, so they're not completely accurate. But just talking generalities, this goes off of, this kind of displays the number of smartphone users in the United States from 2010 to 2023. You can see that it's kind of plateaued a bit, but from 2010 until now, it's been a pretty big jump. At 2020, you can see that we're sitting at 272.6 million smartphone users in the USA. You consider the fact that there's approximately 331.9 million people in the USA, and some quick maths will tell us that 82% of Americans have smartphones. So that's 82% of our entire population that you're missing out on reaching out to for your business if you don't have a mobile presence. So you can kind of get what the topic that we're kind of swaying you towards here with all this talk on smartphones and mobility and why is it important. So the next question is your website mobile friendly? Just because, you might have a website, but does your website look good on a phone? Because we've all had those situations where you open up a website, the formatting's all crazy on your phone, you get frustrated, you maybe don't proceed with it. But a lot of our clients actually come to Infinity with this question asking, do you guys have apps? Do you guys have the capability to develop an app? And our immediate answer, which sometimes turns people off, is no, we don't. But if you think about it, what benefit does an app do for your business? Do you have a developer that's going to create your app, that's going to debug your app, that's going to maintain and update your app? If you do, that's going to be rather expensive just because of the average hourly rate of a developer. Also, that sounds like a developer rather skilled in multiple tools, and that can also add to their cost as well. An app, there's so many things you have to do. You have to create it, you have to maintain it, you have to update it, you have to upkeep it. But in reality, an app is really just a worse version of a mobile website. How many of you have tried to open up a bank statement through one of the banking apps and it tells you, hey, you got to open this from a browser? So why do I have this app to begin with? Why did I just spend 5 minutes, maybe not 5, but you have to download the app. You have to do whatever you need to do for security to enable your Face ID. But at that point, why not just go to a URL and have immediate access to whether it's information on your business or immediate access to make a payment without downloading something, immediate access to submit an application without downloading an app? Doesn't that sound a little bit more immediate and a little bit better for the customer experience from their perspective? And the answer to that is absolutely. Apps are terrible, actually. The majority of them. Well-made apps are very good. But of course, that means that you have a dev team. All of those factors that we already discussed. Upkeep, maintaining it. You have to make sure there's no problems. You have to make sure it actually does what you're hoping for it to do. That's creating something out of nothing. Whereas you could just have your existing website or build a secondary part to your website to make it work through a tablet or a phone. And immediately you have access and more immediate access to this entire demographic that we're talking about. So being mobile friendly is extremely important in terms of your website and just having that reach to be accessible for your customer base. So basically establish that everyone's on their phones all day. And would it be smart for your business to ignore such a huge market? Absolutely not. So we definitely need to ensure that you have not only a web presence, but it's compatible for tablets, phones, every direction that they possibly consume information about your business or marketing for your business. But yeah, that's it for mobility. And next up, we have emails. This might seem like a very bland subject for most, but there's actually a lot of ways to elevate your business and the way your business communicates with your customers by means of email. But before we dive into that, let's actually pause real quick for a little bit of story time. So as Americans, I'm sure most people are familiar with the Pony Express, but if you're not, it's basically a very primitive way of communicating where in the past, before the USPS, before FedEx, before email, you used to hand this guy on a pony a letter, and he would just ride cross country until he delivered it to the recipient. So it's kind of funny if you think about it now. Of course, sure, we're going to drive across town to drop something off for a family member or a friend, but that's with a car. It's not with a horse. As time progresses, technology is always going to make improvements, right? So with that being said, the Pony Express is an outdated service, and to utilize it in modern day would be ridiculous. And what I'm getting at is emails have kind of done the same thing to paper. And if you use paper, you are doing a huge disservice to yourself, your business, your employees, your customers, the growth of your business, all of the above. And it's just really annoying. And it's even hurting the earth. So there's all these negatives to using paper. Well, what are the advantages to using email? For email, the first thing you can do is automate it. Depending on what stage you're at as a customer, you can set up triggers for emails to go out automatically. This way, you can kind of keep the customers in the loop to complete certain steps like signing documents or uploading documents. Keeping them informed, keeping them in the loop, and eliminating a lot of the need for a CSR to talk to your customer or have any kind of human intervention in your underwriting process. Of course, having humans, nothing is going to replace human judgment. We can automate as much as we can to make our business extremely efficient. Archiving. We can also archive all of our messages. You can archive paper too, but imagine going through hundreds, if not thousands, of socials, names, paper folders. And on top of that, the same person might have multiple documents or multiple loans. So within that folder, there's maybe even more information that you sift through. What if I could just type it on my keyboard and it just shows up? Wouldn't that be a little bit easier? That's kind of what you're missing out on. You don't utilize emails because all messages are archived because it's digital. It's all saved somewhere. And you can pull up a report. You can pull it up based on date. You can even check if certain things are accomplished because certain emails are tied to triggers. Things like NSF. Hey, how many NSF emails did this customer receive? NSF is tied to an actual return. So there's a lot of different things you can do with the email to improve your overall processes. And again, that customer experience that we keep thinking about. And lastly, might be obvious, but all of these things just lead to a more reliable, instantaneous, and secure experience for both yourself and your customer. Just kind of having it on one spot with a cloud instead of having to deal with essentially a file cabinet with all of these folders that really don't matter. It's that one-off chance where you check someone's email or social number. Wouldn't it be easier to have just an online database to be able to search through? Just because utilizing emails, archiving everything allows for that. So another thing we have smoothed over is that going green will also save planet Earth. So going digital has even more benefits beyond just business and overall efficiency. But hope this leads to green for your business. So we've kind of talked about a few different types of emails. In my opinion, there are three major categories. So the first category is informative, making sure that you're keeping the customer in the loop, making sure they're educated on whether it's process or educated on what to expect, educated on your product, just being over-informative, over-explaining. The second is actionable. Sometimes you complete an application online and it routes you to the member area and you're just kind of like, well, what do I do next? Maybe you need to send some action items. Hey, you need to log in to complete your instant bank verification. You need to log in to upload your driver's license. You need to do X, X, and X before we can proceed with your application. Guiding your customer through the process, it's similar to information, but it's forcing them or kind of getting them into taking action. The third one, kind of a general subject, but marketing. Of course, every successful business needs to have a successful method of marketing to reach out to new customers and to essentially gain new business. So when it comes to marketing emails, there's a lot of things you could do, from obvious ones like holiday greetings or birthday reminders. You could even have marketing campaigns that are more strategic in a sense of maybe you want to send a message to all the customers who've completed more than 3 loans with your business. All the customers who have completed maybe just 1 loan. whatever it is, identify that group of customers and, send a mass message with a couple clicks. Basically, everything we've discussed up to this point is rather subjective, meaning that something that works for one client might not work for another, and a great idea for one client might be a horrible idea for another client. So what's something a little bit more tangible, a little bit more concrete, where regardless of your situation, I can pick this up and immediately improve my business? Well, if that's your question, then you'll be excited to hear that that's basically this entire last chapter. We're going to be going over SEO and lead generation and a lot of fancy words here that might seem unfamiliar with, but let's go over it. So what is SEO? SEO, we've probably seen it online everywhere. We've seen all these crazy commercials with it. We've seen it all over the internet with these buzzwords and how to improve SEO. Well, SEO is a combination of all of these items that you see on this page. Strategy, social network, website optimization, web design, ranking, content, feedback. All of these important factors tie together to essentially improve the ranking of your website when someone searches. So SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. And it's basically the practice of increasing the quantity and quality of traffic to your website through organic search engines. So what does this mean? What do you do when you need a vehicle in your local area? Maybe you Google cheap vehicles in my town, right? Probably the same thing for loans. So if I need a loan, Google, hey, quick loans in my area. And if someone were to make that search in your state or county or wherever you do business, is there a guarantee that your business shows up there? What if it's a whole bunch of other businesses? What if your business does show up, but it's on the third, fourth, fifth page? Are you going to beat out the members that have their search showing up as number 1 or 2, a top result on Google? Probably not. So these are all items that can be improved with search engine optimization. So kind of showing a more advanced graph, SEO is a combination of so many factors. And it might be overwhelming. I don't know where to begin. I don't know how all of these things tie together to SEO. Well, I will give you a little secret on something that Infinity did. This is actually our secret formula. We had no idea what we were doing with SEO. So we hired someone who did. You probably have no in-house developers with a heavy understanding of a loan management system. So you hired Infinity Software to essentially provide that loan management system, LMS, for your business. What I'm getting at is, maybe you don't have a specialist that knows everything about SEO. Even if you don't, you can find someone who does. You can find a business with basically concepts that align with yours. You can find someone that you like working with, enjoy the company of. But of course, if you're able to find a specialist to kind of craft a strategy to implement all of these items together, it's really going to improve the way your business shows up when your customers actually need it. Because what good is a website? What good is spending all this time and money to develop something if it doesn't even show up when I Google it, when I need it, right? So you need to make sure that it's visible, it's actually accessible, because if your website does not have good SEO, your customers will not find your website. And that website is as good as useless. So SEO is extremely powerful. It's definitely a newer service, so a lot of people might not be as knowledgeable on that fact. But there's a lot of specialists out there where depending on what kind of items you're looking for, I'm sure you'll be able to find a specialist that can assist your organization crafting an effective strategy. But as great as SEO is, there's still a lot of limitations. So with the evolution of SEO, there's also filters now. So filters basically meaning that if an organization or business uses too many of one word where they deem it too much like spam, or you use too many buzzwords where they deem it as predatory, your business can also get flagged. So this is obviously a very advanced stage of the conversation with SEO that you would probably want to craft with whatever specialist you end up working with, if you end up hiring one. But this is a common problem that a lot of people face where, of course, there's diminishing returns. You can improve your SEO up to a point But in the end of it all, you're still going to have words that you can't use because it's going to flag your organization. So it actually ties us in to our next subject, which is leads. So you might be confused because we have Disneyland Splash Mountain here, more specifically, Pass Lane. So hopefully everyone here has had the or displeasure of visiting and hopefully has got to experience what a fest can do to change your life. Having to stand there for 3-4 hours, let's skip through all that nonsense. Get to the front of the line, do what you do, get through the Splash Mountain, and be on your way. So how does this relate to lending? Honestly, one of the most common questions I get asked is, Eli, how do I cut some corners? How do I establish myself when I don't really know where to start? Not really reaching out to my customers. I may be hired one for SEO, but it's going to be weeks before we have that presence that we're hoping for. So how do we kind of kickstart or provide some energy to jolt that business? Well, the answer to that is the easiest way to make a splash for your business. Once again, the fast pass to gaining success for your business is going to be buying leads. It's going to be the easiest and most effective way to revolutionize everything. Buying leads is essentially your business's equivalent of purchasing a fast pass and skipping that rigorous 3-4 hour line in the sun that your business would have to normally walk through their due diligence of refining a process, of searching for customers that fit your model, etc. You sidestep all of that with a fast pass, which is purchasing leads. So how does that play out? Why does that play out like that? Well, in addition to SEO, this is the most tangible thing you can walk out with. But of course, it is an investment, but it's the shortcut worth the investment. In general, leads, if you have a well-refined underwriting process, and that's a big if, because you need to make sure that we're collecting quality over quantity, right? If we're just taking every single lead, then it's really no different than just taking any kind of customer off the street. But what really makes leads unique is you can be very specific with what you're looking for. You can set the bar really, really high. And sure, while a lot of customers might not reach that bar, you're now looking at quality over quantity at a much higher volume than generating leads on your own. Leads in general, done correctly, will always lead to profit. It is by far the most effective thing you can do for a business if you have the proper foundations. Again, having that quality over quantity in terms of your underwriting process and making sure that the foundations are refined. But of course, when you purchase leads, they give you the option to pick from different tiers. There's going to be cheap leads where maybe things are few and far between. But maybe depending on your product, that is a tier that's really effective. It's got a really high hit rate for your loan product. So you're able to look at certain groups of customers, certain customers from even specific areas, because maybe you can't do business with a certain bank or certain county. So you could tell your lead provider that, hey, I only want leads from this zip code. Anything other than that is automatically blocked. So you can look at different groups, different demographics, and you can even implement advanced underwriting filters. So meaning again, setting that bar really high to make sure their monthly income is sufficient for the loan amount that they're requesting. Making sure that their alternative credit reporting or their bank statements actually make sense. Things of that sort. You can tie all of these to making sure that your leads that you purchased are very well qualified to give you a higher chance of approving that loan. And of course, you can specify target industries based on employers. We already talked about location, maybe certain demographics. Whatever you're looking for, the lead provider will be able to provide you a lot more options instead of just kind of plucking random customers from an ocean and hoping it actually works out. All right, so you've made it to the end. And we've talked about a few different ways to improve your online presence. Some of them are subjective. Some of them might work for others and not for some. Some of them are more tangible, like the SEO, the lead purchasing that we discussed. So the biggest thing is, of course, style. Making sure you're able to leave a good first impression for your customers, right? When they're unsure about your business, giving them that confidence to kind of go over that hump and to pull the trigger and do business with you. Mobile friendly. We talked about how much reach a simple smartphone has in our modern age. So, apps are nice, but apps are also really annoying because you have to deal with all the maintenance, the creation of the app. Why not just have a website that works on all these different platforms to essentially expand your reach? Email strategy. Of course, utilizing emails is a huge first step already, but maybe you still use paper in your business. Maybe there's other items you can automate by adding a step with an automatic email message. Maybe you need to provide your customers a little bit more direction by sending them action items, etc. So having